Welcome back around to theCUBE's live stream of AWS reInvent 2025. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. This is day 2 of 3 days of coverage. This is our 13th year covering reInvent. We've seen the wave from cloud computing and now obviously the AI and the data kind of abstracting away kind of work, and then the new apps that are coming on. It's really been a great show. Key announcements around the models and then how people are building apps. Scott Stephenson, the co-founder and CEO of Deepgram, is here. They're doing some pretty cool things. Scott, thanks for coming on day 2. We're surviving all day yesterday. How are you holding up?
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to have some of the announcements come out with Deepgram and SageMaker with bidirectional streaming. It's also exciting to see all the multimodal announcements and everything. And I'm holding up all right. It's a lot of walking, but it's been very good.
Talk about the news that you guys had with AWS, because obviously Matt Garman laid out the big stuff and then they had the follow-on keynotes. Really the big push you can see. Obviously AI Factories aligns with kind of the AI infrastructure wave and CapEx, but a lot of the action into kind of end-to-end multimodal models coming together. Talk about where you guys fit into some of the news. You guys had some great alignment with AWS. Just give us the news hit.
Yeah, context is key. So there's a lot of basic functionality in models now, like speech to text, text to speech, text to text, like a language model. But in order to get those models to work at the highest level possible, you want to include context. So like in the context of audio, are they calling from a car? Are there children yelling in the background or whatever? That tells you something about the conversation that just the speech to text doesn't tell you. And these are multimodal ways of thinking about things. You're using audio, you're using text at the same time. They also announced images, and you can use this for video as well. And all these pieces give you more context. And one of the big announcements for us is bidirectional streaming in SageMaker. And this is big because right now, most AI that people, like the workloads that people have put out there into the world, are actually more like an interactive or batch mode workload. And there's more for LLMs where you load all of the context in at once and then the output streams. And for voice, though, you can't wait to load all the context in at once. You need to have an active conversation like we are now. I'm responding to you. We're doing all this in 100 milliseconds or less. That means that you need to stream in and you need to stream out. And so this is a big announcement for us that I think will be a primitive that's used for a decade plus.
Yeah, I love the primitive angle. Just explain more detail around the importance of the bidirectional, because I think that's worth kind of double clicking on, because where does it impact the app? I mean, obviously SageMaker has been great for people who are going to go under the hood and play around, and obviously the developers love Bedrock. But talk about the impact. Where is it going to be impacted in the advancement? What specifically can you share? Is it just for call centers, Connect? I mean, where is it land, and then where does it kind of extend out? What's the headroom look like?
Well, I think voice is the first real-time workload where real-time is super prevalent in that workflow. But that'll be big first. So that means call centers. It means business meetings. It means real-time transcription in hospitals in order to better deliver care, et cetera. But I think real-time AI is just an overall much larger category. And most AI now is not real-time, but we'll probably move to, it's 5 years, 10 years from now, we'll be having the same conversation. And we'll say, man, 80% of tokens are real-time now. But the importance of that is that you reduce the latency. So like in how we're speaking right now, I can respond to you, you can respond to me. Everything is happening in real time. It's streaming into my brain and it's streaming out of my mouth. And if I had to wait,
it would be awkward and it's slow.
And then finally respond, then it's like, this doesn't work, right? So that's the big thing, is like, man, do you want to wait for all of this? And it breaks the realism of how everything works, and it's the fastest way to turn a customer like in a real-time interaction is if you give them that wait.
It's interesting, Scott, because bringing up something that's come up all day yesterday and previous interviews I've done, where the latency on real-time versus I could wait. I mean, it came up even with some of the S3 conversations about vectors and tables, which say, hey, okay, I'll wait. I mean, I don't mind waiting if you're going to do a task, but on certain things, I need to have specific SLA on latency. And how's that going to impact, say, the average developer? I mean, take me through how you guys engage. Do I just use it in the cloud? Are you going to market with Amazon? How do I use it? Use Deepgram?
Yeah, so we're big partners with Amazon. Love working with AWS, and the big thing with you probably hear it over and over is that customer choice. Is a big thing for Amazon, and they really take that to heart. And so, in certain situations, Deepgram's models and underlying platform are the best for that situation. It's typically real time, low latency. When you need really high accuracy, then using Deepgram is probably a great choice. But there are other products that Amazon has released, like the Sonic or like Transcribe, et cetera. Yeah. And in certain situations, those are going to be the right choice for the customer as well. But for us, it's usually that super high volume workload, the low latency. You need the ability to make the model really good at your challenging acoustic environment. Then Deepgram is going to work really well for that in real time.
So you guys optimize really on the front end, on the voice AI piece, and kind of look downstream for Nova and other things to kind of pick up.
Yeah, we do perception, so speech to text, but we also do text to speech as well, and they're both contextualized. So just like if you wrote down a sentence and said, you tried to force a text to speech model to say it, actually, if you don't give that text to speech model context, then it kind of has to say it in a monotone, sort of even way. It doesn't know, if you just say the word great, you just write the word great, you could say great, or great, or great. Or like they all are different things. They all have different contexts. They all have different meanings, right? But we offer text-to-speech at Deepgram too. You can speed it up, you can slow it down, et cetera. So it's both sides of the conversation.
I mean, we're streaming this conversation to the cloud and pushing to YouTube and all these channels. I mean, we could literally pick up Deepgram and say, hey, optimize the transcription.
Absolutely.
And then call other functions and do other things. Like, who else has done conversations like this?
It's cutting edge. It's if you look at the closed captions on TV, the news or whatever, they're typically like delayed 10 seconds, 30 seconds. That's all going to be gone.
I've always hated that.
It's all going to be replaced.
I always hated that. I want to ask you about context. You brought that up. One of the things that's come up with some of the S3 conversations with some of the engineers was text and voice goes to text. There's also metadata that kind of makes it bigger because words are words. I mean, but if you have context like vector embeds, it's come up with kind of, I won't say fatter, more bloated, but like more content. How is that impacting some of the tech? Is that something that you guys think about in terms of when you do this text, or is it not an issue?
Well, there's a topological affecting. So basically, do you accept more metadata or not? And there are many models that don't. Okay. But the world is definitely moving to this multimodal, more highly contextualized type of model. So it might be a perception speech-to-text model that normally accepts audio. That's how people think about it. But it will also accept CRM data. So it knows how to spell your name. It knows where you live. It knows all this other information. So it can do the perception job even better than it did before. And I think that is a trend that is going to continue. And it's all going to be combined together. Like we have a neuroplex architecture where the entire idea is that context is flowing and being stored everywhere. And it's definitely going to increase the size of the data that is stored. But most companies are doing this in an intelligent way where they kind of shrink what that context is. So the most meaning is included in that context. So you don't want to bloat what goes into your LLM by 10x in order just to give it context, right? You want to pay a little bit of tax on it, 10%, 30%, something like that. So hey, can you compress that down? And that might be through vector embeddings rather than the actual human interpretable text, right? Or other methods.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for explaining that. The other thing that's come up, when I interviewed Matt Garman before reInvent, he made a quote. He said something to the effect of, chatbots aren't about toys, it's about the system. Talk about the conversational AI. I'll put that in quotes because it's been kind of a category, chatbots. And people are, obviously that's a user experience. Hey, I love talking to the AI system. Voice is definitely an interface. What's the difference? How do you look at the system view? Because now with agents, you got to think about a system kind of workflow, not just a gimmicky reasoning chatbot, getting a knowledge bank or some knowledge system.
Yeah, and the chatbot is just one function in that bigger system, and you could have multiple agents working together. One that you never talk to, but it's that agent's job to go organize your database or whatever it is, right? And so I think it's a new world, but you can also just look at it a lot like human systems. Whenever we're trying to accomplish a goal, we have a go-to-market team, a product team, we have a research team. On the research team, there are managers, there are others, et cetera. And then we also use tools like computers, like others. And then we call those tools, we use those tools. It's all going to be the same. It'll actually probably be managed in a similar way because we have to form it in a way that humans understand, and we understand human organizations. And so then that's how it'll
Well, I love what you guys do. Love the multimodal. I love the speech to text. I think it's going to be a killer app. Obviously, we've been saying that. Everyone's talking about it. But share your journey. You're the co-founder. What's the stats? How big are you guys? Where are you at in the progress? What are some of the coolest things you're working on? Talk about the company a little bit.
Yeah, so we've been around for 10 years, and we started in the cohort with OpenAI. OpenAI worked on text. We worked on audio. We were at YC with OpenAI. Sam was the CEO. He was our group partner.
That's cool.
You know, but we focused on audio and bringing end-to-end deep learning to the audio world, and then bringing scale to the B2B world. And we released our first product in 2018. And since then, it's been high growth mode. But we have a research team, and we have a product team, and we have a full strategic infrastructure team.
How many people on the team?
That's about 150 people.
Awesome.
We've raised publicly about 100 million. More news to come there. But I started out as a particle physicist. I built deep underground dark matter detectors. It was like in a James Bond layer. I'm not kidding. It was like yellow railing, the crane, people grinding, sparks flying everywhere, et cetera. And I was in a government-controlled region of China, right next to where they launched their satellite facilities. We bought our liquid nitrogen from them, et cetera. It was a really interesting time. But what I thought was, this is so cool. We're 2 miles underground doing this. Why isn't there a documentary crew here? And so we built this little device to record audio all day, every day, 24/7. Just a Raspberry Pi with microphone and SD card. And then it actually uploaded to S3. So that was my first experience with AWS is, maybe 14 years ago, something like that. Saying, hey, we need somewhere to store this, but we need it to be cloud connected, so we'll just dump it into S3, and then we'll accrue all this data. Well, we got all this data, and then we thought, okay, we recorded our lives, but we're not going to take our entire lives. Like we're not going to listen to our lives again. Like that doesn't make any sense.
No one wants to replay
24/7.
Give me the highlights.
Listen to it 24/7. Exactly. So how do we make a highlight reel? That was the question, right? How do we make a highlight reel? How do we search to find those? And long story short, we searched the world, and we couldn't find a good enough solution. We even went to Microsoft, Google. We met with their speech team, and we said, hey, we have some weird data, just some scientists underground. We'll give you this data, but can you give us access to your next-gen end-to-end speech, deep learning-based speech system? And they're like, that'll never work. We tried it over and over. End-to-end deep learning is never going to work for conversation. And we're like, what? Yeah, but this is 2014, 2015.
It's early.
And it was all these people who were brought up on different types of systems, not end-to-end deep learning systems.
You had basically had a corpus.
Yeah.
You had an unstructured data corpus. You had no dogma, just like, hey, I got audio.
And we had the physicist mindset of, no, I think this is possible. And we got a very similar system working in physics. It was basically like a speech recognition system, but with a 10-word vocabulary. And it was an end-to-end deep learning system, and it totally worked. And it did the equivalent data of about 100,000 streams concurrent for like voice data. So we're like, no, this is totally possible. I don't know what you guys are talking about. So we couldn't get off the call fast enough with them basically and say, we need to start a company. These people have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. So that's an interesting time. If you go look at like say 2015 and then 2018 when OpenAI and started scratching the surface. It wasn't really on anyone's radar. It was just a bunch of folks just jamming on things, mostly research. And then some of us were like, okay, my friend just went to OpenAI. And in the Valley, where I live, it was like, okay, there's some cool shit going on there. And it's like, okay. Then it's like, wow. So that was an interesting time. What was it like? Because, it's kind of like a revisionist history, but it was grinding back then. It was kind of like, and then COVID hits.
Right? Nobody was buying, but there were a few believers. Like, so if you put a blog post out and, lots of people would read it, they say, that's really cool. If you're a founder, you don't like when people say that's really cool. You want people to say, I want to buy that, here's my checkbook. That's what you want to hear. But you hear a lot of that's really cool. But then you match that up with the future market size. Like now, I would say voice AI is $1 trillion market,
huge.
And we saw that from the beginning. It's like, wait a minute, when you get all this stuff working, it's going to be this huge market. And so, anyway, we just had that belief, and I think the physicist mindset helps here because a physicist timescales are like, we might work on something for like 20 years, 30 years, you know, and it might just be like, it didn't work, you know, and so you're in this like monk mindset, you know, where you're like, I don't care, I'm getting paid, you know, 24K, 30K a year, and I'm just going to keep pushing the ball forward because this is so cool what we get to do. I really think, I like to think about what we get to do at Deepgram in that way. We don't have to do it, we get to do it. We get to do this. And so anyway.
And you're doing it when no one really is paying attention, you're kind of misunderstood.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, everyone wants voice AI.
Yeah, and it's the 10-year overnight success, right? Where you're like, oh, okay, everybody needs it. They need to scale it. They need it. It's supported across 100 different languages. They need it. They need it in their VPC. They need it adapted to their different use case. All of this, and then they're like, where do I get it? And it's like, there's only one place. It's Deepgram. So
I think I'll do a documentary on that 2018, 2021 timeframe. Very cool things happened and controversial things. But I think what's cool is that you guys were coming at it from a science standpoint with research.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about your current research team, because this is a pattern I'm seeing where the successful folks aren't like thinking, oh, I nailed product market fit. It's always iterating.
Yeah.
And they have research teams. And it's not your classic applied research or, hey, solve the world problems. It's actually directed, it's intentional research.
Yep.
Share your vision on how you think about the research role in Deepgram and as the things, the high velocity is coming on. So it's like, must be, I mean, it's kind of intentional. I guess it's applied, but it's not like the division sponsors some, you know, research and how to make the product better. It's more breakthrough thinking. Or share your thoughts.
It is, yeah. So you do both at the same time, where you have frontier teams that are working on things that we think that in the next 2 years will be the frontier. And so now we're just trying to pull that forward in time, you know, saying, how do we get that in 3 months? How do we get that in 6 months? And then we're looking toward the future where everything is contextualized, everything is really low latency, real time. All of the agents are using other models, other tools, et cetera. But then you say, okay, that's the vision, but we pull back and say, what can we move forward, you know, in time with our research team today? And we're the ones who brought end-to-end deep learning to the speech world. We were the first people to productize. Deepgram was the first company to productize end-to-end deep learning models on GPUs. At the time, image models, any type of text autocorrect or anything, it was all done on CPUs. GPUs were thought of as too unreliable, and we're like, no, guys, come on. GPUs are the future.
It's math. Let's go. It's matrix multiplication.
We have to figure out how to make it reliable. And so actually, NVIDIA was a great investor in Deepgram early on, one of our seed investors, and we worked with them closely. But with that in mind, like, this needs to be a production grade system, and so we are going to be the first to roll that out into the world because audio has this real time use case. You need to take advantage of the GPUs, and so let's just build it. And I'm willing to wait. If it's going to take, at the time, I would have predicted 7 years for the voice revolution to happen. It took about 9. So hey, for a physicist, that's a pretty good error bar right there, right?
Like
so
blink of the eye, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we were already signed up to do it for a long term anyway. And so now I'm just like, look at what's happening. It's so great. Voice AI is going mainstream.
It's a great story. First of all, it is a killer. Everyone knows that's the interface. You can just see all the evidence there. It's easy to connect the dots. You mentioned frontier, and the term frontier model. Now Amazon's using frontier agents.
Yeah.
It means something to be a frontier model. Explain in your mind what frontier means, because there's a lot of people kind of slicing the salami on the definition, like, okay, it's more forward bleeding edge, or it's more reasoning versus, say, a model. What is the difference? What does frontier mean?
Yeah. So I think a lot of folks will look at that too on the angle of how many parameters does it have? It's a frontier model because it's the biggest or something. There are multiple frontiers here. And so you could say I have the biggest model and that is a frontier model. I'm pushing into that regime. That's actually kind of an easy one to do. Like anybody could set up way too many parameters. But really how I think about frontier models is, are you bringing a new capability? So for instance, with our, we just released a model called the Flux model, which is, it does the job of speech to text, but it also determines, is it my turn to talk or is it your turn to talk? Who are people talking at this time or not? So this is called voice activity detection and end of turn detection. But that's now all fused into that one model that used to do speech to text. Now it has expanded this, and this is the first model of its kind to do that. It's the first to incorporate context being injected into a perception model. And so I think of it like when the research team says, "Hey, we need to do this thing." We're hearing all this from the world that the world needs this. do they go look at other papers or do they think from first principles?
Yeah.
Because the other papers where people have already tried it and you're like, okay, we're just going to implement something that they're doing, that's more applied research. When you're doing frontier thinking, no, you're setting up all the experiments yourself and you're saying, okay, it might be this path, it might be that path, it might be that path.
You're kind of plowing new ground, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And doing new things. Capabilities is really kind of the core.
Yep. You're pulling out the trees, you're burning the brush, you're flattening the land, you're plowing the field, you're doing all of it.
I mean, I feel like we could go another hour just riffing on this, but I want to ask you one question, because in the 80s when I was playing around with ontologies in my old life, CS degree, AI was kind of theory, but ontologies were built for like with taxonomies and word combinations. Linguistics was a big focus. What's the words, apple of fruit, or a company kind of thing. Voice is a unique linguistic attribute versus, say, text. You got accents, you got all kinds of context. What's your vision on this? Because I think this is an area that I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about the value of voice linguistics. Because it is language models. I mean, so like, it's not just written text. What's your vision on this? I think this is going to be an innovation area.
Yeah, even just a single word. I wish I had an audio file to play you because I'll do this when we're presenting sometimes. But even just a single person saying the same word, hello, they can say it in many different ways, right? But then you put them in different acoustic environments, different accents, different ages, different everything. Like there's so much more information packed into a single word in audio compared to written down in text. And I think what is sort of unique about this age of AI is that you don't have to be the smart one to develop the heuristics for the ontologies, for the way of organizing it. What you do is you create the sandbox and you feed it the right data, you feed it the right underlying model architecture, and then you feed it the right curriculum and training to now the models are like building their own way of thinking that way. So. And this is actually the unlock for end-to-end deep learning. This is the original insight. If you rely on people like our research team or any other researcher to come up with all of the insights, actually that's the reason that Google and Microsoft are saying this is impossible. You know, like
they try to get the answer.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to hard code these things in. You know, it's like no. You have to build a system so that the data teaches the model what to do, basically. And this we're just in the beginning stages of that still. I would look at this like there's an agricultural revolution that lasted maybe 1,500 years. There's an industrial revolution that lasts maybe 250 years. There's an information revolution, which is kind of just ending now, that lasted about 75 years. That's, storing data, looking at, transferring it at the speed of light across the world, that type of thing. That's the information revolution. Google's part of that, et cetera, right? But now we're in the intelligence revolution, and it's a totally different game. And we see our customers like Salesforce, like Decagon, like Vapi, all these companies, they have thousands of customers, and all of them have different situations. And so you need to build a system that is able to identify that and say, oh, in your situation, the model should see more data like this, and then it will be better over here. But you want a totally automated system to do this. And I think the real-time constraint really helps here too, like in figuring out the differentiation. Because if you say, well, can't just a huge model do that? And it's like, probably it can, but it can't do it in 100 milliseconds. And so you have to build a system that can do all of this in a very real-time fashion. And then that separates the real-time companies versus like the interactive mode.
And that's where the bi-directional streaming comes in.
Exactly.
All right, well, I really appreciate that, laying down that knowledge. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Just, put a plug in for what you're optimizing for. What's your focus? Also, you got the primitives out. I'm sure there's more development. What's the plan?
Yeah, we are continuing to deepen our partnership with AWS. There are so many opportunities in AWS Health with SageMaker for the primitives, but also in the AWS customer service space and Connect. So we have an integration with Connect where you can use Deepgram for speech to text, text to speech, and we see a lot of excitement around that because just like the AWS and Amazon mindset of giving people a customer choice in that real time use case, Deepgram fits many use cases, and so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's a building block as a primitive too. It's like you got both. Well, Scott, thanks for coming on. You're certainly trailblazing. Love the story. Love what you guys are doing. Congratulations. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, great. Great. It was a great speaking with you, and thanks for having me.
All right, cool. We're going to get this speech to text more real time. We're almost there. We're doing our best to bring the conversation here on theCUBE. Thanks for watching.